Revealed. How winning $10 million inspired me to secretly transform my family's future. Tom Anderson felt like he was in a dream. The glimmering ticket in his pocket seemed to pulse against the fabric, a heartbeat thrumming with impossibility. He was the holder of $10 million. Yet, as exhilaration coursed through him, it quickly twisted into dread. What would he do with this unprecedented wealth? Maplewood was small, its people known for their hawk-like scrutiny. Would he seem a hero, or would he ignite envy and resentment? Every day, as he twisted wrenches in the dim light of Kingdom Auto, he could still hear his father, Hank, reminiscing about the fishing shop he always wished to open. The kind of place where father and son could bond over bait and tackle. Lily had dreams, too, of attending college and turning her passion into a profession. But Tom was a mechanic, forged from years of twisting and turning problems into solutions. This was uncharted territory, and he had to keep it secret if they knew the truth. Would they still find joy in their aspirations or worry about the strings that came with money? That night, he lay awake, mind racing, heart in turmoil. The thought of revealing his windfall haunted him like a shadow. His family still struggled. They wore their hardships like a second skin, and he feared that showing his hand would unravel their stability. What if he became the villain? Wealthy? Yes, but a target for others' envy. He envisioned people eyeing them, casting whispers behind closed doors. If he were to help, it would have to be in silence. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. In his workshop, the overhead lights flickered, casting long shadows. As Tom thought about the improvements springing up around his home, the new porch swing, the spruced-up yard, he felt a tightening in his chest. Did it make him a liar or a savior? He wrestled with the idea that he was erasing their struggles while deepening the roots of his dilemma. Every smile from Hank felt like a sting, a reminder that he was orchestrating happiness built on a flimsy facade. The tension was palpable when he saw Hank gazing wistfully at a section of their property, imagining where the fishing shop might stand. Tom wanted to tell him it was all just around the corner, that the dreams were no longer out of reach. But how could he explain it without revealing his secret or the ropes that bound it? As Tom stood hammering a dent out of an old fender, the noise of metal on metal reverberated through the shop and echoed his internal conflict. Doubts swirled and intensified. A local leader, known for wielding influence with an iron fist, was growing suspicious. The whispers of his father's dream had begun to attract attention, and Tom wasn't sure he could hold the truth much longer without his family's security unraveling. What would happen if he stepped into the light, shedding the darkness of secrets? Would it shatter everything he'd worked to preserve? In this moment of reckoning, Tom's world hung precariously in the balance, each decision spiraling toward an inevitable confrontation about to shatter his carefully woven web of hope. Tom woke the next morning with a heaviness in his chest. The sunlight spilling through the kitchen window felt like a spotlight on his secret, illuminating the very cracks in his foundation. He swiped a hand across his face as he mentally prepared for the day ahead at Kingdom Auto. Work had always provided an escape from life's complexities, but today it loomed like a shadowy figure, reminding him of the impending decisions that needed to be faced. As he arrived at the shop, the familiar scent of oil and gas filled his nostrils, grounding him momentarily. Norm, his colleague and friend, greeted him with a grin that spoke of camaraderie. "Hey, Tom, ready to tackle the day?" Norm asked, oblivious to the turmoil swirling within. Tom nodded, forcing a smile. Each interaction was becoming a mask he struggled to maintain, and today, that mask felt particularly heavy. Throughout the morning, he lost himself in the rhythm of mechanical work. The sound of tools clanging against metal became a meditation, but his mind was far from calm. Between adjustments and repairs, snippets of their family's future floated, in and out of focus. He envisioned setting up that fishing shop, watching his father's eyes light up, but along with it came the daunting prospect of revealing the truth he held so tightly. When lunch hit, he retreated to the break room where the dim lighting mirrored his mood. A shining new world was within reach, yet the thought of grasping for it felt fundamentally wrong. As he chewed on his sandwich, he couldn't shake the reality that hiding his fortune had become part of his daily narrative. It wasn't just a secret. It felt like a betrayal. Outside the shop, he could see neighborhood kids racing by on their bicycles. They radiated the unencumbered joy that Tom yearned for himself and his family. Would they lose that light if Tom intervened in their gritty reality? The complexity of his choices weighed heavily on him like the tools he used in the shop. That evening, he wanted to talk it over with Lily. She had always been his sounding board, her youthful perspective often refreshing. She sat cross-legged on the living room floor, absorbed in her studies. He knocked lightly on the doorframe before drifting in, as casual as possible. "Hey, Lils, got a minute?"
"Sure thing,"
she said cheerfully, glancing up. "What's up?" Tom struggled to find the right words, his heart racing in his chest. He sat across from her, attempting to conjure an aura of reassurance he no longer felt. "What do you think about our future?" he ventured, gauging her response carefully, her brow furrowed slightly as she considered his question. "I think we'll figure it out."
"Why?"
This was the moment. He could feel it coursing through the air. He wanted to foster a discussion about dreams, possibilities, and how he truly felt torn about it all, but a lump formed in his throat. "I mean, do you think money changes everything?" "Not everything," she replied thoughtfully. "It helps with some stuff, but what matters most is our family." "Why are you asking?" Tom's heart sank further. She couldn't know.
"Not now."
Still, her innocent insight sparked something deep within him. He couldn't keep these secrets forever. What if revealing the truth wasn't a betrayal, but rather a step forward, leveling up their family dynamic? That night, he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, floating in possibilities of what might come next. The lines between right and wrong blurred under the weight of impending decisions. With Lily's words echoing in his mind, he felt a flicker of hope and courage. Perhaps it was time to embrace vulnerability rather than hide behind fear. But as hope crept in, he sensed the shadow of gossip drawing closer. The very next day would bring the community meeting a perfect storm where whispers could easily spiral into rumors. The time had come to decide. Would he stay silent and uphold the facade, or step into the light, revealing the new dawn before him? The next morning arrived with a cool breeze that slipped through Tom's windows, stirring thoughts scattered like leaves in the wind. His stomach churned, a battleground of anticipation and anxiety as he prepared for the community meeting. The familiar sense of coffee and toast filled the kitchen, but his appetite had long since fled, replaced by a gnawing sense of urgency. Today was not just another Tuesday. It was the day he could either stand firm in his deception or dismantle the walls that had imprisoned him for too long. Could he summon the courage to confront his fears head-on? The thought unnerved him. Each tick of the clock echoed the pounding of his heart as he rounded up the essentials for the meeting: his notepad, a pen, and a single folded piece of paper bearing a few bullet points he needed to remind himself how to explain his choices to those he cared about. As he drove to the community center, he replayed Lily's words in his mind. What matters most is our family. Yet, the weight of their shared life pressed down on him too. How would the others react? Would they view him as a traitor not just to them, but to his family? The question swirled, amplifying his sense of isolation. Upon arriving and stepping into the crowded room, he was struck by a hubbub of voices that buzzed with theories and expectations. People stood in clusters, faces lit with a mixture of anticipation and concern, their whispers swirling around Tom like an unwanted fog. He spotted Norm at the far end, his easy smile failing to penetrate Tom's gloom. "Hey, Tom, you okay?" Norm called as he waved him over. The warmth of Norm's greeting briefly chipped away at Tom's resolve, but he responded with a tight-lipped smile, fearing that breaking down here could send him spiraling. Yet just a little nervous. As the meeting began, faces turned expectantly toward the front. The moderator outlined the agenda, highlighting community concerns and future projects. Tom felt strangely detached, as if this was happening to someone else. He jotted notes absent-mindedly, but his mind was preoccupied with his own impending revelation. When it was his turn to speak, a hushed silence fell over the room. He stood up, the legs of his chair scraping against the floor, amplifying the tension in his chest. All eyes were on him as he took a deep breath, forcing the air into his lungs as if steeling himself against a tide of judgment. "I need to address some things," he said, his voice trembling. "What I'm about to say can change everything. I've been hiding something important from all of you." The murmurs intensified, mounting like a swelling storm. But there he stood, the mask beginning to crack. With each word, he could feel the layers of his facade peeling away. "I've recently come into an unexpected windfall, $10 million to be precise." Gasps echoed through the room, and Tom noticed the disbelief in Norm's eyes, confusion etching his features. "I was scared to tell anyone. I thought money could complicate everything, that unveiling it would make me a pariah, that you'd all turn away from our friendship. But after talking to my sister, I realized that truth brings family closer. I don't want this to change who we are as a community, but I think it can help us if we embrace it together." Tom's heart raced, and he felt lighter despite the swirling uncertainty. He had done it. He had opened the floodgates. Perhaps now he could reclaim his future not just for him, but for his family as well. Then he noticed a familiar figure at the edge of the room, someone who had never been shy about voicing his opinions. Tom's stomach dropped as he locked eyes with Marcus, a known antagonist, who wore a cynical smile that promised trouble. The moment hung heavy in the air, a charged silence building toward confrontation. Would Tom stand his ground, or would the very secret that should have liberated him become a shackle? With all eyes upon him, he braced himself for the storm. Tom's heart raced as his gaze locked onto Marcus, who stood tall, arms crossed, an air of patronizing disbelief shrouding him. The silence felt like a taut wire ready to snap. In that moment, the room shifted, every set of eyes transforming from supportive allies to an audience poised for conflict. Tom's palms grew clammy, yet he steeled himself, reminding himself of the weight of his declaration. "Really, Tom?" Marcus drawled, his voice laced with sarcasm. $10 million? That's a bold claim, especially when you've been living among us like a regular Joe. Tom swallowed hard, a rush of indignation surging through him. Was this how it would be? A man he barely regarded wielding doubt like a sword against his truth? Behind Marcus's words lay the unspoken implications of greed and envy. This wasn't just a challenge, but an attack on his very character. "Yes, it's true," Tom replied, his voice gaining strength. His mind raced with thoughts of how to respond, how to regain control without losing himself again. "But this isn't about me flaunting wealth. It's about what we can do together, what we can create beyond just numbers." He felt the sincerity behind his words as they began to flow more freely. "Creating a better life, huh?" Marcus smirked, clearly reveling in the moment. "I don't suppose you've thought about how this windfall changes the balance within our group? How do we know it's not going to turn you into some kind of elitist?" An uneasy murmur rippled through the room as Tom sensed the winds shifting. The very thing he sought to unveil, the hope, the possibility, was now clouded in doubt. But desperation turned into determination. This was the crucible that would forge his resolve. "I've spent years trying to keep up appearances, fearful of what my past mistakes might unleash," Tom said firmly, addressing the murmurs. "I've learned that authenticity is worth more than wealth. I'm not here to isolate myself. I'm here to build something. We can create job opportunities, support families, make a difference in our own neighborhood." As his words settled into the air, he caught glimpses of familiar faces flickering with contemplation. Norm's brow furrowed, a hint of uncertainty mingling with curiosity. Tom knew Marcus wouldn't back down easily, but perhaps he could turn this confrontation into an opportunity. "What you see as potential arrogance, Marcus, I see as responsibility," Tom continued. "And it's more important to me than the money itself." This is about accountability to my family and to everyone who has stood by me. And yes, I need to face my fears about acceptance. But we could change lives, ours included, if we work together. The tension was palpable, the crowd now oscillating between skepticism and intrigue. Tom was aware that he had taken a step on a tightrope, but it felt exhilarating. He glanced around the room, searching for familiar nods, signs of support. Would they believe him? Could they recognize the power in his vulnerability when it was juxtaposed against Marcus' cynicism? Yet, as more faces crossed his vision, he noticed Marcus' expression morphing from disbelief to consideration. The smirk waned slightly, and Tom felt a flicker of hope within himself, but it swiftly turned to apprehension as Marcus leaned forward, like a predator preparing to strike. "Sounds noble, Tom. But what's the catch?" he asked, the smirk replaced by a careful inquiry. "How do we know this isn't just smoke and mirrors another excuse to escape responsibility?" Tom's pulse quickened again. He would not allow doubt to derail him. "The only catch is that we must strive for transparency. I will ensure that my intentions are shared openly. And if I falter, you have my permission to hold me accountable," he asserted, finding a spark within his earlier fear. Murmurs erupted again with mixed reactions. An unexpected challenge arose. A query from the crowd twisted the atmosphere. Will we see a change? Or is this all just talk? The unlikely alliance and shared purpose he envisioned stood on a precipice now. Would they accept his accountability?
Could he
steer this confrontation toward genuine collaboration? In that moment, Tom understood that the truth was only one aspect of his reality. The true test awaited: could he inspire change in others while battling against the shadows of mistrust? With Marcus still looming, Tom realized the storm was only just beginning, and he would need to summon the courage to face whatever followed. The fight for acceptance and the future he wished to build had just commenced. And as the room began to stir once more, the stakes were higher than he had anticipated. Would he be brave enough to face the heart of resistance, or would the shadows close in once again? The murmur of doubt that swirled through the room was like a rough tide, threatening to sweep Tom off his precarious footing. He could feel the weight of their scrutiny, eyes boring into him with a mix of skepticism and expectation. Every heartbeat echoed the question weighing on him. Could he truly transform this moment into something meaningful? The challenge Marcus posed was more than just verbal. It was a stark reflection of the self-doubt that gnawed at Tom's core. "Transparency," Marcus echoed, his tone mocking yet contemplatively probing. "What does that even mean in practice?" "Words are easy, Tom. Show us." Tom inhaled deeply, tapping into the well of resolve hidden beneath layers of uncertainty. As he opened his mouth to respond, he envisioned not just words but actions concrete, tangible steps that would silence doubters like Marcus. "I want to meet regularly, discuss updates openly. Let's form a committee to oversee the use of the funds. I want you all, especially those hesitant about me like you, Marcus, to be involved every step of the way." He watched as an eyebrow quirked on Marcus' forehead, skepticism folding back slightly as curiosity stirred. "You're keen on collaborating, huh? What about the outsiders? The consultants, advisors, and investments? Who's keeping an eye on you?" $10 million has its seductions, Marcus challenged, leaning forward, crossing into Tom's metaphorical space. "Trust is built on consistency," Tom countered, propelled by the wave of emotion rising within him. "I understand my past actions have impacted your perception, but this is a chance to evolve. This isn't just about my windfall, but the collective growth we can achieve. New businesses, job creation, it needs our shared input, not just mine." Behind him, a surprising voice broke through the tension. Norm, always the quiet one, leaned forward. "What are you really afraid of, Tom? You've been given this enormous chance. But are you scared of actually moving forward with it?" Caught off guard, Tom felt the sincerity of Norm's question ripple through him. What if Norm was right? Had he been hiding behind a cloak of ambition while avoiding the real risk of personal accountability? The realization was a gut punch, stinging yet enlightening. It wasn't just the fear of judgment, a fear rooted in his past failures. It was the broader anxiety of stepping into a future where he could truly lead, and others could genuinely depend on him. Yes, Tom admitted, a soft confession threading through his words. I'm scared of not being enough. But if we can embrace this together, perhaps we can be more than our doubts. I need your support to hold me accountable. The crowd shifted, the initial hostility beginning to fracture under the weight of Tom's honesty. There was a moment of quiet contemplation, where Tom sensed a faint glimmer of recognition in their expressions. Change didn't come from flashy promises. It came from brutal honesty, the willingness to lay one's vulnerabilities bare. Marcus tilted his head, the arrogance he had exuded softening into something more contemplative. So you're committed? Truly committed to making this work, not just for yourself, but for all of us? Can we count on you? The stakes were high, the opportunity laid bare before him, with the fragile hope hanging in the air. Yes, you can count on me, Tom answered, conviction solidifying his voice. As they locked eyes, he felt the shift. Perhaps Marcus was beginning to understand that this was not just a transaction, but a moment that could define the future. Yet within the folds of his determination lay the shadows of uncertainty. Even if this coalition could form, Tom knew forces would still conspire against him. Trust takes time, Marcus stated slowly, a slight smile beginning to tug at the corners of his mouth but doubt still dancing in his eyes. Let us see how long you stay committed then. The tension remained, but in that moment, Tom realized he had taken a first step, each word a stone laid toward a new foundation, solid yet incomplete. As the swells of emotion dissipated into cautious optimism, a new simmer of challenge emerged. Would he maintain this newfound resolve in the face of ongoing scrutiny? With thunderous applause lurking beneath the surface, Tom understood one unwavering truth. While he may have opened the door to collaboration, the path to building trust stretched infinitely ahead, fraught with obstacles he had yet to foresee, and lurking in the shadows was Marcus, ever ready to pounce. In that moment, Tom knew that his journey was just beginning. The time had come to not only prove himself, but to uncover the very depths of his capacity to inspire authentic change amidst the shadows of doubt. Tom spent the next few days mulling over the implications of his commitment. The weight of responsibility tugged at him, gnawing away at the layers of self-doubt that he had long wrapped around himself. Each morning felt heavy with the knowledge that every move he made would be scrutinized, not only by his peers but by himself. After all, this was the moment where inaction would equate to failure, and the stakes felt impossibly high. He began to plan, channeling the anxiety into action. Meetings were arranged, committees established, and a transparent framework set up to manage the funds responsibly. Tom wanted to foster an environment where everyone felt empowered to voice their opinions, a stark contrast to the loneliness that had characterized his previous ventures. But as he drafted agendas and pored over spreadsheets late into the night, he couldn't help but feel an underlying itch of inadequacy. He questioned his qualifications, second-guessing each decision. Was it enough to facilitate discussions? Would that be perceived as merely delegating or empowering? The line felt perilously thin. His fear was compounded by a conversation he had with his sister, Mia, who phoned him out of the blue, her voice laced with concern. "Tom, I've heard some things," she'd said, her tone both worried and curious. "People think you've changed, but what if you haven't? You have to be careful. This amount of money can expose the truth about who you are." Her words struck deeper than any criticism. Tom felt raw and exposed. He didn't want to be the person who failed to rise to the occasion, a nightmare that had haunted him since childhood. The fear of remaining stagnant, of being the same man who made choices weighed down by uncertainty, clawed at him. In the days that followed, he immersed himself in reading about leadership and effective management strategies. The more he absorbed, the more he found pieces of himself in every theory, application, and crisis management techniques. Each lesson resonated, igniting a flicker of self-belief that had eluded him for far too long. Yet, there remained a question hovering: was his drive for change genuinely rooted in altruism, or was it entangled with a desperate need to validate himself? Marcus's skeptical gaze lingered in his mind, a specter tethered to Tom's burgeoning confidence. As he began to call meetings and facilitate discussions, he felt the tight knot of expectation coil in his stomach. The first meeting brought together a motley crew: designers, financial advisors, and community organizers, all with their own investments, both emotional and financial, in the project. As the discussions unfolded, Tom found himself engulfed in the conversations, steering them with newfound motivation. He could feel the mutual appreciation build, and for a moment the fear slipped away. Yet, after the warmth of camaraderie settled, doubt returned, reminding him that collaboration also meant vulnerability. Would they see through his facade? Would they recognize the fragility beneath his poised exterior? The breakthrough came unexpectedly. One afternoon, as he was finalizing the minutes of a meeting, he received a call from Marcus. "Heard you're making waves over there, Tom," Marcus said, his voice a mix of distrust and intrigue. "Care to explain how you're keeping everyone on board? Is it the charm or the new strategies?" Tom realized that this was a pivotal moment. He could either crumble under the scrutiny or confront it head-on, affirming the progress and honesty he had aimed for. "It's about engagement, Marcus. I'm investing my time in building relationships, something you've always dismissed. If we can communicate, I believe we can thrive together," he replied, steadying his breath and leaning into the challenge. Silence stretched, and for the first time, Tom detected a shift in Marcus's tone. His skepticism was tempered by a hint of intrigue. Yet even as the conversation ended, Tom couldn't fully shake the anchor of uncertainty that pulled him down. The challenge of staying genuine and vulnerable while maintaining authority weighed heavily. And he knew, instinctively, that the hurdles were only beginning. As the days turned into weeks, he found himself wrestling not just with tactical decisions, but with the inherent conflict of being seen as a leader. The walls he had built to shield himself now needed to come down, but the fear of doing so was paralyzing. Ultimately, in the attempt to be transparent, Tom realized he would also have to confront the shadows of his past. The journey wasn't going to be simple. He needed to dig deeper into his own insecurities. And as the horizon loomed with uncertainty and opportunity, Tom understood that to move forward, he had to be willing to redefine not only how others saw him, but how he viewed himself. Would he have the strength to peel away the layers he had so carefully constructed? The moment of truth was on the horizon, and with it, a reckoning that Tom had only begun to perceive. Would he rise to meet it head-on, or shrink back into the shadows he had long inhabited? Tom understood that to lead effectively, his efforts had to transcend superficial engagement. This needed to be about genuine connection and understanding the stakes involved. Yet, each day felt increasingly daunting. The surface of his confidence was wearing thin, exposing frailty. The realization both unnerved him and set him on fire with the desire to confront his buried insecurities. The tension became palpable during team meetings. Tom now had eyes watching him, intently carting along his aspirations, doubts, and the collective energy of the group. One afternoon, the conversation had turned to budget allocation. A designer named Angela expressed frustration, her voice firm yet tinged with concern. "We can't keep shifting resources without a clear vision, Tom. What's the point of all this if we don't know where we're headed?" Her words reverberated. Where are we headed? He had offered no substantial direction beyond encouragement. With his pulse quickening, Tom confronted his own inadequacy. There was a thread of truth in Angela's challenge. He had been steering them on enthusiasm instead of a robust strategic framework. This moment laid bare the discomfort of his leadership void and sparked a fire of urgency to remedy it. That evening, he put aside his usual spreadsheets and instead filled a page with notes about the vision he had long avoided articulating. The paper, filled with messy thoughts and half-formed ideas, became a mirror reflecting his soul. Tom questioned repeatedly. What did he want? In a raw moment of clarity, he wrote "change lives" at the top of the page, followed by a frantic list of actionable objectives. They needed direction, and if he didn't provide it soon, he feared the momentum would stall. However, the shifting sands of his confidence raised more questions. Did he want to merely change lives to leave a mark on this project, or did he seek a deeper validation? Was he just a vessel for his ambitions? In the brutal honesty of that moment, he recognized this wasn't he solely about others, it wasn't he enough to enact change outside if he was crumbling inside. The next day, he entered the meeting room with an unsettling mix of trepidation and conviction pulsating through him. As they gathered around the table, Tom yearned to convey his vision. With steady breaths, he initiated the discussion, this time with a clearer agenda firm in hand. Hey team, I've been thinking about the direction we're heading. We need to align our resources with our mission. Here's what I see. He paused, glancing at their expectant faces, the growing apprehension in his stomach palpable. This isn't just about numbers and logistics. It's about us, what we believe in, and our impact. We have a responsibility. Every gaze remained locked on him, a mix of encouragement and uncertainty swirling in the room. To his surprise, his words ignited a dialogue that was passionate and frank. Ideas flowed freely now. The discomfort that had previously hung like a fog began to lift. Each piece of feedback Corey shared brightened the air, and with every contribution, Tom felt a fracture in the armor he thought he needed to wear. Yet as hope began to meld with tension, doubt skittered beneath the surface. Would he be able to assist this team in feeling empowered while managing their expectations of him as their leader? Tom knew that the inner battle was far from over. The collective synergy they were beginning to harness was a beautiful tapestry, but what if his threads unraveled under pressure? Later that week, an unexpected phone call from Mia halted his momentum. Tom, her voice trembled slightly. You need to be careful. If everything collapses, you'll lose more than just money. Think about us, what we built. Is this still for you? Her words pricked at his carefully constructed bubble of confidence. The subtle reminder of his family's expectations loomed in the backdrop against his burgeoning leadership facade. Could he bear the weight? As he ended the call, panic clawed at his throat. He had been inching toward authenticity, and now the fear crept back. Confrontation was simmering just below. His new vision for the project, however inspiring, was only as solid as his conviction to stand behind it without crumbling under scrutiny. The tug-of-war within him shifted, a new layer of complexity adding fire to his determination. As he turned to his notes, one lingering question haunted him. Would he be courageous enough to define his true self in front of others, or would doubt drown out his resolve? The day loomed ahead with meetings and decisions that could change the trajectory of not just his professional life, but everything he'd hoped to build personally. It was a tightrope he was teetering on, and each breath before the next conversation felt heavier than the last. What would happen if the veil was lifted, revealing the rawness of his struggles? Tom braced himself. The moment of confrontation with his fears and expectations was looming just ahead. He had no choice but to either fly or fall. Tom arrived early at the office, the morning hush amplifying his internal chaos. He stood before the glass doors, the reflections of towering buildings challenging him with every flinch in his resolve. Today felt pivotal, a threshold separating his hesitant ambition from the inexorable demand for authenticity. His first meeting of the day loomed, a routine budget review. Yet, it felt like a gauntlet, each financial figure pressed to the forefront of his mind. As he flipped through the carefully crafted slides, a persistent hum of doubt echoed in the hollow chambers of his thoughts. Would clarity emerge from the numbers, or only further confusion? As his team gathered, Tom made a conscious effort to exude confidence. Leaning against the conference table, he felt the eyes of his colleagues probing him for answers. Instead of the polished rhetoric rehearsed in his mind, the words came out bumpy and raw. I know we've been facing some setbacks. This isn't just about the budget. It's about how we can align what we've learned with our vision. The atmosphere shifted slightly. Some heads nodded, but others remained suspicious. He had hoped for solidarity, but encountered skepticism instead. The room grew dense with stilted breaths, and an unexpected silence pressed him to solidify his message. Angela's right, Tom acknowledged, seeking to reclaim their trust. We have to ensure every dollar spent feeds our core mission. I can't provide that vision alone. I need our collective insight. Each word morphed into a challenge, a dare against his own vulnerabilities. He felt their weight pressing against him, the expectation, the shared aspirations, the looming fear of failure. Amid the conversation, Corey challenged him again, pushing with the edge of a question that felt like a dagger. Tom, do you really believe we can build something meaningful? Or are we just trying to keep the lights on? A wave of heat surged through Tom. He was cornered, illuminated under a glare of crucial honesty. It had been easy to navigate discussions masked in numbers and statistics, but now he had to confront the harder truth that hovered like a specter. Early in this engagement, I was focused on metrics, on proving something, he confessed, the gravity of the admission grounding him, yet freeing him. I realize now that my focus needs to shift to our legacy instead. To change lives. He could sense a change in the room. The dialogue shifted from pointed inquiries to suggestions, a team captivated not just by the vision, but by the poignancy of his honesty. As their contributions flowed, they identified pain points and unexplored potential, each comment unraveling a layer of stiff expectation he had felt from them. He began to see them not as scrutinizing colleagues, but as allies on a journey he was no longer alone in charting. Yet, within this electric exchange of ideas, the persistent prick of uncertainty remained. Was this newfound camaraderie genuine? Or a fragile facade waiting to collapse under the weight of real-world challenges? The pulse of his doubts quickened again, riding the crest of newfound hope. Later that afternoon, Tom sought refuge in his office, the silence amplifying his swirling thoughts. A tattered notebook lay open, the once scattered fragments of his vision steadily evolving into a cohesive strategy. The realization dawned that this wasn't merely a professional endeavor, it was a chance to heal his own sense of worth. Each line he penned solidified his resolve to explore the complexities of transformation within his team and himself. Just as Tom felt a flicker of clarity emerge, another call rang through. The screen lit up with Mia's name again, her concern evident even before he answered. "You're exerting a lot of energy shaping everyone else's path, but what is your plan for your own?" Her words struck a nerve. He hadn't articulated his own deeper ambitions, fears, or aspirations amid the drive to lead. The effort to self-validate was now intertwined with the responsibility he felt for his team. Each strategy they dictated bore a weight, but his own aspirations felt like the ghost of an addendum, an afterthought he had yet to manifest. In that fleeting moment of contemplation, Tom sensed the pivotal shift. He understood that leadership wasn't merely about guiding others, but also navigating the uncharted territory of personal conviction and authenticity. The looming decisions ahead would demand not just strategic insights, but illuminating his innermost struggles, laying bare his vulnerabilities. He opened his notebook again, this time with fervor coursing through him. "If I am to be a leader worth following," he scribbled, "I must also lead myself." The ink glided fluidly across the page. As he sealed the notebook, a new wave of determination coursed through him. Accepting the truth that vulnerability could serve as a strength, Tom faced the upcoming days with a simmering urgency. He stood on the edge of personal revelation, unafraid to confront the tangled lines between his identity as a leader and the man he wished to become. But just as he took a deep breath, a notification pinged on his phone. An email titled "The Proposal" flicked across the screen, altering the very trajectory of his path. The impending response would force him to confront not just his leadership, but the legacy he might choose to build. The crescent of afternoon light peeked through the blinds, illuminating Tom's desk with a slant of gold, but his mind was elsewhere. The notification taunted him, a pulse of urgency thrumming in his chest as the email from corporate awaited a response that could redefine everything. He hovered his finger over the screen, wrestling with the weight of expectation that bore down upon him. This was not merely about numbers or projections. This was a litmus test for his evolving identity. As he opened the email, the words struck him like an unexpected gust of wind. "Proposal to secure a $10 million investment," the subject line read. A hum in his mind echoed the potential, a vibration of possibility that felt both intoxicating and paralyzing. This grant wasn't just a lifeline. It was an opportunity to obliterate previous limitations and usher in a new narrative not just for the company, but for him as well. Tom leaned back in his chair, feeling the taut muscles in his shoulders begin to relax. This proposal could provide the freedom to pursue ambitious initiatives, to transform his ideas into tangible realities. Yet beneath the thrill lurked a simmering discomfort. Was he ready to champion this endeavor? Did he even have a vision grand enough to justify such an infusion of resources? A cascade of thoughts rushed forth, his team's expectations, personal aspirations, and the creeping doubt that he wasn't the leader they needed. Each of these threads began to weave a complex tapestry of pressure, an unspoken challenge to conjure a plan that sounded as bold as it felt. His notebook glimmered temptingly on the desk, a refuge for his thoughts. Retrieving it, he flipped to a fresh page, taking a moment to breathe deeply. To lead this opportunity successfully, he began to write, "I cannot treat it as a mere financial transaction. It must be a launchpad for transformative impact." The ink carved purpose into the delicate fibers of the paper. He paused and reflected, what impact did he truly wish to see? He mused over the core values he'd begun to cultivate within himself. Collaboration, authenticity, and accountability were not just ideals he wished to promote within his team. They were principles to integrate into his own vision. If he took this leap, he needed to ensure that the outcomes weren't just monetary but also reinforced the legacy he yearned to build. As dusk crept over the city, Tom found himself remapping the contours of his aspirations. Instead of simply outlining a plan for the proposal, he envisioned the potential to impact lives not just within the team, but extending beyond the immediate reach of the organization. His heart raced at the thought. If they could align their initiatives with transformative goals, this would resonate like a manifesto of change, a rallying cry for everyone involved. Yet, the looming buttons of doubt pressed against him. He recalled how easily skepticism permeated his earlier meetings, how vulnerable he felt upon challenging the status quo. This proposal could elicit further scrutiny, magnifying his insecurities. What if he failed to deliver? What if the ambitious idealism behind his plans crumbled under the weight of reality? Sweat formed at the nape of his neck as he reconciled the interplay between opportunity and fear. The moment of clarity was dawning. If he was to face the shadows of doubt head-on, he would need to summon every ounce of conviction he could muster. Leadership wasn't about escaping fears. It was about wielding them like a sword to carve out a path forward. "Tomorrow I will meet with the team," Tom decided, the words flooding onto paper as a solemn pledge. "Together, we'll lay the foundation for this opportunity." The decision felt monumental. He was no longer alone in this. He had nurtured a team ready to engage intellectually and emotionally, poised to harness their collective courage toward this endeavor. As he finally closed his notebook, a newfound energy coursed through him. This journey encapsulated an authentically bold step forward, not just for the company, but for his evolving self. Yet, just as he felt a swell of determination, his phone buzzed again with another notification. A reminder from Mia flashed across the screen. "Let's talk about your priorities tonight." Her words lingered, prompting conflicting feelings of exhilaration and the dread of confrontation. Would he be prepared to articulate this shifting identity and reveal ambitions that felt more daunting with each passing moment? Tom stood on the cusp of change, driven by both visions and insecurities. The delicate balance needed to confront the future awaited him. All that remained was to answer that invitation. Would he meet that challenge head-on or retreat into familiar shadows? The dawn of a new beginning greeted Tom as he rose the next morning, a renewed sense of purpose coursing through him. He had navigated the complex labyrinth of doubt and expectation, carefully laying the groundwork for a pivotal meeting with his team. Today, they would not just discuss a proposal. They would redefine their collective vision. As he made his way to the office, the weight of responsibility still pressed down on his shoulders, but it was now coupled with an invigorating sense of determination. Tom had spent the previous night meticulously preparing his thoughts, merging ambition with authenticity. He was ready to present not only the numbers but the why behind them, illustrating the indelible impact they could have on their community. When he entered the conference room, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Colleagues exchanged glances, their camaraderie palpable, but the unspoken question hovered in the air: could Tom lead them down this path? He took a deep breath. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice now steady and sure. "Today I send tea just about this proposal. It marks a shift in how we approach our mission. I want us to harness this opportunity to create meaningful change." The energy shifted as they settled in, attentiveness replacing skepticism. Tom laid out the vision, a foundation built on collaboration, innovation, and shared responsibility. His proposal wasn't merely financial, it was a call to action, an invitation to embark on a journey that would benefit not just their ambitions, but the entire community. "With this funding, we can launch initiatives that uplift local families, create jobs, and provide skills training," he outlined, passion seeping into his every word. "We want to just be known as an organization that succeeded based on a one-time windfall. We will emerge as a leader committed to sustainable growth and social responsibility." Questions and suggestions flowed freely, almost like a dialogue without barriers. Tom felt each shared idea build upon his own, amplifying the collective vision they were forming. Project proposals were sparked, each accented with enthusiasm, problem-solving a collective endeavor rather than an isolated responsibility. A community garden could foster local engagement. One team member proposed, "What if we created a mentorship program to help youth with practical skills?" suggested another. As Tom nodded and encouraged the discussion, he felt a wave of pride wash over him. The camaraderie he'd longed for was being forged in real time, transforming the initial apprehensions into mutual conviction. He could sense acceptance growing within the group, a burgeoning trust forming around shared aspirations. Days turned into weeks, and the dynamic within the team solidified beyond what Tom had envisioned. He embraced the challenges, approaching each with a mindset grounded in honesty about his role as a leader. Self-awareness became his ally. He learned to invite feedback and accept constructive criticism, further fostering an environment where every voice mattered. A pivotal moment arrived when Marcus sought Tom out after meeting. His posture shifted from confrontation to candidness. "You've really surprised me, Tom," he admitted, the animosity between them beginning to dissolve. "I didn't think you had it in you to share such a vulnerable side and still focus on what's good for all of us." For the first time, Tom felt the weight of acceptance settle over him, releasing decades of self-doubt. He had proven not only to himself, but to those around him that his journey was not one defined solely by his windfall, but by an unwavering commitment to genuine leadership. As the projects launched successfully and positive changes rippled through their community, Tom received acknowledgement from the mayor, recognizing their collaborative efforts. "Maplewood has seen new hope, and thanks to Tom and his team, we're proud to champion sustainable growth." In that moment, as applause echoed through the town hall, he stood before them, embodying the man he had always aspired to be, not merely defined by monetary success, but by the impact he had made in others' lives. Tom realized he had graduated from silence to audible voice, from fear to accomplishment, resolved, self-assured, and grounded in his purpose. Tom never looked back. He returned home that evening, the warmth of fulfillment wrapping around him like a cozy blanket. His family's dreams were within reach, not just his father's fishing shop, but the flourishing potential of their entire household. As he lay in bed, he felt solid confidence radiating from within, a beacon highlighting his evolution. He had conquered vulnerability, proven his capacity for leadership, and established genuine connections with his team and community. Above all, he had achieved true satisfaction in knowing that he had turned the tides of uncertainty into currents of hope. No longer was he just a mechanic with a dream. He was a leader who had embraced transformation, capable of forging a brighter future for not just Maplewood, but for those he loved most. Tom smiled to himself as he closed his eyes. The journey was but beginning. He had found his voice, and with it, he had transformed not only his family's future, but his own identity, fueled by the resonance of true connection. Now, it's your turn to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm because it truly makes a difference. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this inspiring ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your voice matters.